redundancy. What is data redundancy? And then we're going to be looking at some scenarios and multiple choices. Okay, so what is data redundancy? It is nothing more than storing multiple copies of the same data in different places so that if one copy is lost or damaged, another can be used. And this is very important in the area of cybersecurity, not only cybersecurity, but in any aspect of where data is important. Can you imagine you are in the hospital working and all the patient data is stored on the computer, one computer, and it is not stored or backup or saved automatically anywhere, and a attacker decide to do a ransomware attack on the computer, and because there's a ransomware, everything is locked down. Nobody have any access to the patient information. Nobody have any access to what medication the patient should get or the patient condition, because everything was stored on one system. It wasn't centralized, wasn't backup. There's no copy of the data anywhere, and it becomes a problem because what if they pay the ransom, but the attacker decide not to give the money, not to release the data? Then there is problem. So it's always important that in an organization, because data is of value, and we know that data is money. You and I know that data is money. Some data, if you lose the data, then you lose millions of dollars. And can you imagine the downtime this will bring for an organization because they refuse to do backups, right? They refuse to do data redundancy of copying the same data in multiple places. So if there is a natural disaster, sometimes we have earthquake, we have tornadoes, we have flooding, and all of these natural disasters. And also we have man-made accident like an employee deleting data, accidental, a developer accidentally wipe the data out, got in the system, they don't know what they're doing, and they wipe the entire data out. And that is a big problem because none of the data was stored anywhere else. And so an example of this would be like a cloud drive, right? A Google Drive rather, that automatically saves your documents. So if the cloud, they save it in the cloud. So if the computer crashes, you can still access your files from different devices. So let's say you have your computer in your hand and you have a Google Drive with all of your information. Because Google Drive is stored in other location, right? Another platform. So because you store them, you are able to retrieve them in from another device. So it will not be a problem for you to go and retrieve the same data because it is stored in different location. It will not be a problem to find those data in different locations, right? So that is very important, that data data is copied in different location, and this will prevent any problems in the future in terms of should there be a disaster. Do you get that? I hope you get that concept, right? That is extremely important. Okay, so continuing, so data redundancy, in it, like we said, it's creating multiple copies of the data across different location or the system, and this really protects against data lost due to maybe hardware failure. Sometimes you have hardware failure, and like we said, sometimes you have natural disaster, and sometimes you have cyber attacks, and we have to make sure that if any of these unfortunate events should happen, the data is elsewhere. So in this regard, the data can be replicated, it can be synchronized, um, to ensure real-time updates, right? And the data is copied, right across different platform. Okay. And so in today's digital world, you have cloud storage that offers effective solution for data redundancy, such as data is stored across multiple data centers. Sometimes that is it. And this minimize what we call a single point of failure. So if there is a single point of failure in one of the data center or one of the third party that you use, then there is always some other level of backup that is elsewhere. So you are not left to wonder, or scratching your head as to what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, because the data are there. So let's look at this scenario. It said a customer database in a retail store. A retail store maintains a customer database that include the following files. The customer ID, it has a customer name, the address, the email, phone number, purchase history. That's what the database contains. However, due to poor database design, each time a customer makes a new purchase, their personal details are stored again, leading to multiple records of the same customer. So we don't want this in a data redundancy. We don't want the same data that is duplicating the same thing over and over, right? We try to eliminate. So when we are doing the data duplication or data redundancy, we have to make sure that it's not duplicating the same, like, the same name every time the person do a purchase is the same thing. We have to do some check, we have to do some examination to make sure that the data that are being stored and copied elsewhere is not just a duplicate of what was there before, but actually we run a test to make sure that the system is recording the right data. Because what a disaster that could be if you find out that every time you do something, instead of it updating in the location or copying the right file, that is copying the same thing over and over. Your first name, your history, your phone number, over. All of that is in the system. What we're trying to do is, if there is any additional information, or just making sure that the information is copied in different here, but the duplication in this scenario is every time this particular customer buys any item, it duplicate their address, it duplicate their email, all of that is in the system. But again, the database was poorly designed. Okay, so when you're designing the system for your data, you have to make sure that there are checks and run tests to make sure it is working and it's backing up the data and copying the data right. So the issue in this scenario, if a customer updates their phone number, some record may still have the old number. Why? Because it's not functional, in other words, right? So in this case, what you have is waste storage, repeated storage of the same customer information, and this consumes unnecessary storage. So this is what is happening in this scenario, right? Data management problem. Generating report becomes difficult due to duplication. When you are doing your database, or when you are storing data, you got to make sure that the right data is being stored, that it is updating properly. So it's one of the solutions that could be used for this is normalized database, where the customer information is stored in one table and purchases are linked through the customer ID instead of duplicating personal information. We don't want that to happen, right? So let's look at another one. Employee records in an HR system. A company keeps multiple Excel spreadsheets to store employees' detail. One sheet contains payroll information, another stores performance review, yet another keep contact detail. Since the same employee data is manually entered in multiple places, Changes like name due to marriage must be handled in all must be made in all these sheets separately, right? So one of the issue that we can have here is data inconsistency. Some spreadsheet may not be updated, causing confusion, duplication, right? Some may update, some may not, some may be duplicated. Manual error, high higher risk of mistake when you're manually copying the data. Time consuming update. HR must update multiple record instead of just one. So that's why we have technology. But some places they do this. They do their entry themselves, So one of the solution to the problem is implementing a centralized HR database where all departments access the same employee profile. And what this will do, it reduces what it does, it reduces any problem, okay, of duplication, right? And redundancy, it reducing some level of redundancy and ensuring accuracy. So let's look at another scenario. E-commerce product catalog. Let's look what they did with this catalog, right? An e-commerce website has thousands of products listed under different categories. Instead of storing the product details in a single location and linking categories, the developer creates a separate copies of the same product for different sections, like electronic, bestsellers, discount item. And so one of the issue in this scenario is that there is going to be difficulties in updates, right? So the price change require modify multiple records. They're going to be data inconsistency. Some version of the product may show outdated description, and there's also unnecessary storage, multiple entrants of the same product taking up um, excess data space. And so the solution to this we could do is a relation database design where the products are stored in a single table, categories referenced in another table. That's just to just bring out the idea of what we're talking about when we said, trying to eliminate duplication and having data right across. So if it fails at a single point, it doesn't affect the entire organization. Medical record in a hospital. Let's look at this scenario. A hospital maintains separate database for different departments, right? Radiologist, cardiologist, emergency. I'm sorry. Building. It said each department creates its own patient records. No, this is confusion, resulting in duplicate entry for the same person. Because if cardiologists have their own record, if radiology have their own record, what you're going to, and billing. So instead of doing it separate and apart, you create a central system, right? Where an electronic central system where everybody can access, right? So you're gonna have medical inconsistency if the patient allergy or medical history are updated in one department but not in others. It could lead to serious problems, errors, right? So there's also increase in storage because they over here trying to get storage and the radiologists trying to get their storage. So it increases storage cost, right? Multiple database require more storage and maintenance. Data retrieval issue. Doctor may struggle to find a patient's full history. Solution to this is that we could implement an electronic health record that allows centralized access to patient information across all departments. And because this information is centralized, right? If one department should have an attack or a natural disaster, it's elsewhere. And then they need to have multiple copies of these files in different areas, just in case there is issues. So we're going to look at a cloud storage for business, right? A company uses Google Drive and Dropbox to store its project files, right? Employees frequently update the same document to multiple folders and share them repeatedly through email. So they upload the same documents to multiple folders and share them repeatedly through email. Version control problem. Different employee works at different copies, leading to confusion. Waste cloud storage. Redundant copies takes up unnecessary space. Difficulty in collaboration. Finding the last document version becomes a challenge. So one of the solutions to this is use a single cloud-based document management system with version control and access control settings to prevent redundant file storage. What we don't want is redundant file storage. So we talk about this. It's data redundancy involve creating multiple copies of the data across different location or system, and this protect against data loss. And you see that this is very important that we have multiple copies across different systems. But what we don't want to do is duplicating the same thing over and over and over without checking to see that the updates that it is making, that it makes sense, or the copies that it is making, that it all makes sense. So cloud storage for business, and we look at that and we said we can use a single cloud-based document management with version control and access control setting, because we don't want people to go in and just making copies over and over. So once there are once the cloud once you have a cloud-based, a single cloud-based document management system, it will update right across. So no one have to keep going on and making their own updates. Once it is done one place, it's it is reflected in different areas. So let's look at redundancy. What is data redundancy? Is it A, backup system for data recovery? B, the duplication of data in a database or storage system? C, a techniques used to increase database security? D, a method of compressing data. And we say that data redundancy is the duplication of data in a database or a storage system. Do you remember that? Let's go right up there. So you can see, so data redundancy involves creating multiple copies of the same data across different location or system, right? And we protect it against loss. So the answer would be the duplication of data in a database or storage system. Next, which of the following is a major drawback of data redundancy? Which of these are a drawback in data redundancy? Let's see something over here. Okay. Which of these are major drawback in data redundancy? Is it A, improve system performance, B, increase storage cost and data inconsistency? That was B. C, faster data retrieval. D, data network security. And the answer is one of the drawback with redundancy is it increased storage cost and data inconsistency. So sometimes depends again. Remember, we look at the scenario where the inconsistency comes when people making their own data entry over here and it's not updated in another area. So that's where it becomes a data inconsistency. Which of the following best describes an example of data redundancy? Is it using a cloud? A, using a cloud-based backup service. B, customers' detail being stored multiple times in different table of a database. C, encrypting sensitive customer information. D, a company updating employee records in a single centralized database. Right? So the answer will be B. Which of the following best describe an example of data redundancy? A customer details being stored in multiple times in different tables of a database. Next question. How can data redundancy be reduced in a database? How do we reduce data redundancy? By using a data normalization. B, by creating duplicate record internationally. C, by increasing the number of spreadsheet. D, by deleting all the data. And we can reduce this redundancy by using a data normalization that will reduce some amount of data redundancy. Which of the following is not a negative effect of data redundancy? Which of these is not a negative effect? A, data inconsistency, that's B, increase in storage costs, that's C, fast data retrieval, D, more time consuming and update. So the answer will be C. All of the others are has a negative data inconsistency, increase in storage, and time consuming if you have to do it manually, and otherwise it can be time consuming, right? So the answer is faster data retrieval. Which type of database design help eliminate redundancy? Which type of database design will help to eliminate redundancy? Is it A, flat filed database? I didn't talk about this, but you could consider it. B, relational database with normalization. C, decentralized spreadsheet management. D, manual paper record. And the answer to this will be relational database with normalization. Once you see that word normalization, because normalization eliminates redundancy. Right? A hospital maintains a separate database for billing and medical records, leading to duplicate patient entries. What problem does this cause? Duplicate data entry. So the billing has their own and somebody else have their own. What will this duplication lead to? What problem will this create? Is it A, better security and organization? B, increased risk of inconsistency and patient data? Inconsistency patient data. C, faster medical record retrieval. D, improved patient care. So what problem this will cause? It increased the risk of inconsistent patients' data. And again, why? Because different department, the billing has their entrance and record, medical record of their entrance. So what you're going to have is that billing have some information that record don't have, right? So there's inconsistency of information. In a company's HR system, employee details are stored in multiple spreadsheets, right? What is a better solution to avoid redundancy? What is a better solution? A, manually update our spreadsheet regularly. B, store all employee data in a single central database. C, delete older records frequently. D, create multiple copies for backup purpose. And it said, what is a better solution to avoid redundancy? And this is to store all employee data in a single centralized database, right? That is it, to store it in a single centralized database. Next question. Which of the following best describe normalization in a database? Is it A, the process of intentionally duplicating data for security? B, a method of structuring a database to reduce redundancy and improve efficiency? C, the techniques of encrypting data? D, a means to increase database. And so we will say that it's a method of structuring a database to reduce redundancy and improve efficiency. Next question. An online store lists the same product multiple times under different categories, right? Best-selling, electronic, or new arrival. What issue does this create? What issues does that create? They're having it multiple times in different. So the data is it A, easy customer navigation, data redundancy and potentially inconsistency. C, better product visibility. D, improving performance of the database. And the answer will be B, data redundancy and potentially inconsistency. Now remember what we said, that database, that the whole scenario of data redundancy is. Data redundancy involves creating multiple copies of the same data across different locations or systems. This protects against data loss due to hardware failure, natural disaster, or cybersecurity. Remember, data redundancy means storing multiple copies of the same data in different places so that if one copy is lost or damaged, another can be used. And we talk about the cloud. So that is the purpose of data redundancy. But we want to make sure that it is done in an accurate and a constructive way. A constructive way, that it is just not copying data that is not needed in multiple locations. So we're going to look at configuring RAID. Okay, so configuring RAID. So what is RAID? So let's look at a definition for RAID. Configuring a RAID means the RAID is a system that connects multiple hardware drives to improve performance. So the RAID is a system that connects multiple hard drive to improve performance and protect data. Some RAID levels focus on speed, while others focus on keeping the backup in case of a failure, right? So an example of that would be a business may use RAID 1, and you have different RAID 1, RAID 10, all the way up, which mirror data across two drives, right? If one fail, the second drive still has all the data. So in this RAID, let's look at this RAID 0 right here. It said, so the configuration, what it does, it distribute data across multiple drives, increasing performance but offering no data redundancy. That is with the RAID 0, and we're going to look at more as we go along. In the RAID 5 though, RAID 5 combines stripping and parroting information across drive, and it offers both performance and redundancy. It is a popular choice for balancing performance and data protection. Then if we look at it, we have the RAID 1. It creates an exact copy of RAID 1 mirroring data on another drive, right? And it offers a complete redundancy increase of drive in case of drive failure. So if it's there's any failure, there is a backup data. It does that. It's ideal for critical data that needs to be highly available. RAID 1 is for data that need to be highly available. So we're going to look at some scenarios, right? Scenario 1 said a RAID 0 for a high performance gaming PC. Remember that in the RAID 0, it doesn't offer much, right? So in the RAID 0, this configure the distribute data across multiple drive. It increased performance, but offered no form of redundancy. So if it fails, everything is lost, right? So remember that is RAID 0, right? In the RAID 5, it's RAID 5 combine it combines the information, and it allow it to be across multiple drives, and it offer both performance and it has redundancy in it, and it's a popular choice, we said, for performing for balancing and performance. And then when we look at RAID 1, we're saying RAID 1 mirror the copies, right? It mirrors the copy, the exact copy, right, of the data, and it offers complete redundancy in case of a drive failure. And it's ideal for critical data that need to be highly available. So I could imagine that most data places use this, like Facebook and other places, if they use them, right? So let's look at some scenario. John is a professional gamer and a video editor who needs maximum speeds when loading games and rendering video. This his system has a two I 1 TB, you know NV NVMe SSDs, right? And he wants the best possible read write speed. So we're saying if he wants to read write speed without any redundancy, then he could use a RAID 0. It distribute the data across both SSD, but it don't have any redundancy. And it increase the performance as both drive work together, and it make gaming and video editing much faster. But if there is a problem, if there is a failure, it has no tolerance. If one drive fails, all the data is lost. And John will maintain a regular John will need to should or will need to maintain a regular backup. Get in? So let's look at another scenario. RAID 1. That one was 0. RAID 1 for a small business service. So let's say that in this situation, a small accounting firm needs a secure backup solution for its financial records, right? Losing losing client data due to hard drive failure is unacceptable. Cannot allow that. So the firm has a 2 TB HDDs, and the solution to that is that the IT admin configuring a RAID 1 mirroring where the second drive is an exact copy of the first drive, right? And if one drive fails, the system continue running on the remaining disk without any data loss. It's just like when we were talking about having system in place just in case there's a power outage, that there is a generator that step in, or if there we have a load balance. So if there is one device on the network that is malfunctioning or attack, it, it malfunctioning, what will happen? The load will distribute it to the other device on the network, so it won't affect the runnings or the operation. It's business continuity, it is called. So what once one fail, it continue to run on the other disk without any data loss, right? So highly reliability. So in the RAID one, there's higher reliability because it's ensure business continuity, right? The drawback though is that it has a lot of storage capacity, and it is also cut in half, right? So one disk is always a mirror. But irrespective of all of that, the important thing is it that there's a high availability and it's reliable, because if one of the drive fails, then it's running on the other, because it rather have a mirror of the copy, right? Let's look at RAID 5 for a corporate database server, right? A medium-sized company runs a data server that requires both performance and fault tolerance. Fault tolerance, if anything happens, if the business is going to continue, it's not going to put the business in downtime or in limbo, right? So they have a 4 TB HDDS, okay, and wants an efficient RAID setup. So if they have that 4 TB HDDS, right, and need an efficient RAID setup, what they're going to use, the IT team will set up a RAID 5, right, which use one drive worth of space for partying while partnering, while other while allowing other record recovery from a single drive failure, right? So if one disk failed, the data can be reconstructed using the information from the other, which is very important. A good balance between the performance, storage, and redundancy. So more usable storage, more unusable storage than RAID 1. So it use more storage, but it is helpful. So it is 3 out of 4 disks are used for the data, right? So the risk is two drive. If the two drive fail simultaneously, all the data is lost. That's just the problem with this one. If two drive fails, all the data are lost. So let's look at a RAID 10 in a financial system, right? A bank needs a high performance, highly redundant storage system for its real time transaction processing server. Losing financial data is not an option. The bank configuring a RAID 10, all right, using a 2 TB SSD, right? Yes. This setup mirror pairs of drives, right? And then strip them, okay? And combine speed and fault tolerance. For this, the benefit of using this is a high performance, excellent redundancy, right? Um, it can survive multiple drive failures as long as one drive um, per mirror pair remain functional. The drawback to this is it's expensive, require double storage, but it's worth it, right? So that's the drawback. So it is going to be expensive, but in the end, it is going to worth it. Which would you prefer? A system that will give you the high proficiency that you need, but it doesn't have any mirroring. It doesn't. It's not. Its speed is not. It's good, but if there is a failure, it doesn't have the tolerance. Everything is just dead. And we really don't need that. So and so you have the rest of these. So I'm going to go to the multiple choices in this section, and then you can go through the other scenarios as you feel. I have brought you up to points with quite a few scenarios to help you to understand it better. Let's look at some multiple choices, okay? What is the primary purpose of a RAID? What is the primary purpose of a RAID? So let's run back up the street and look what we said a RAID. System that connects multiple hard drive to improve performance and protect the data, right? It's improve the performance and it protects the data. So that's what it is. So what is the primary purpose of a RAID? A, to increase computer speed, B, to enhance storage performance and redundancy, or both. C, to replace cloud storage. D, to encrypt all stored data, and it is there to enhance storage performance and redundancy, or both. That's what it is there for. Which RAID levels provide the highest performance but no fault tolerance? Remember we talked about that? Which of them perform, they give you a high performance but they don't have any fault tolerance? Is it A, RAID 0, B, RAID 1, C, RAID 5, D, RAID 6? And we said RAID 0. It will give you a high performance but it don't have any fault tolerance. 3, a company needs a RAID configuration that can survive up to 2 drive failures. Which RAID should they use? Right? Is it RAID 1, B, RAID 5, C, RAID 6, D, RAID 0? And they could use RAID 6. RAID 1 is also known as, which of these? It is known as mirroring B. What is the main disadvantage of RAID 0? What is the main disadvantage? High redundancy, A. B, reduced storage speed, space. C, no fault tolerance. D, slow performance. And we say that RAID 0 do not have any fault tolerance. A business needs both speed and redundancy. It needs speed and it needs redundancy. Which RAID setup should they choose or use? A, RAID 0, B, RAID 1, C, RAID 10, D, RAID 5. They can use RAID 10. And if you read the rest of the scenarios, you will see those in it. How many drives are required at minimum to set up a RAID? How many drives are required? They need 3, okay? 8. In a RAID 5, how many drives can fail before a data is lost? Oh, the answer is B. Okay? Next question. A gaming PC user wants to maximize speed but doesn't care about redundancy. Which RAID should they use? They just care about speed. They are gaming. They should choose RAID 0 because all they care about is speed, right? And nothing else. And the next question. A hospital wants to ensure that patient records are always backed up in case of drive failure. Which RAID is best? We will let it go with RAID 1. Okay? RAID 1. And for the rest of the multiple choices, you can go through them. They are just additional to the question. You can go through the rest of those questions. All right, so this brings us to the end of this concept. Should you have any question, please don't fail to reach out to me.